Time now for another catch-up for Motorsport New Zealand, another of their international stars doing great things and inspiring the next generation of young Kiwi racers. It is a very big kia ora, g'day to Brendon Hartley. How are you?
Yeah, doing good, mate. How about yourself?
Fantastic. Congratulations, firstly, on Le Mans. It's another win in the books for you and a pretty special, statistically, place in the record books, Brendon. To win more than one is huge, but to win another one with a different manufacturer, that's even more amazing. Congrats.
Yeah, both were special. This one was definitely different. As you say, winning with another manufacturer, I think, is already quite a cool thing. I don't know how many other drivers have done it. I'm sure I'm not the only one. But it's always a tough race, regardless of how much competition there is or not. It's a brutal race to get to the end of. We got our car to the end without a scratch on it, which was a big challenge in itself. But the other reason I'd say it was a weird, a very different experience was the lack of fans. So incredible job by the ACO to get the race underway and happening, but that was at the sacrifice of not having fans at the track. And I think it was a little reminder to me to how important. Well, I think that's my alarm going off. I don't know what that alarm was for, but it was a little reminder. It was a little reminder to me of how important the fans are, in particular at a race like Le Mans. They're such a that's such a big part of it. That atmosphere on the grid, the scrutineering on the Sunday before, the drivers' parade where there's I don't know how many thousands of people line the street. So it was weird. Like, you know, when you put your helmet on and you're in the car, you've obviously got the same goal, and you're not normally focused on the fan and the. I mean, you sometimes smell a bit of a barbecue happening around Arnage in some of the campsites, but it's out of the car, just a very different feeling. A lot more relaxed. It was the most I've ever slept during a 24-hour race week, just because of so many less commitments from media, or walking throughout the paddock was easy. Normally we're bombarded with autograph requests and people looking to say hello. And like, I think I'm talking about too much, but a very different experience. And it took me a while to realize that I'd won the race, because standing on that podium, yes, of course you have all the team personnel, but it took a couple of days to really realize what it meant to win Le Mans for a second time.
Compare the two in the sense of how grueling they are. Was one more taxing than another, and very different machines, obviously. But what were the differences?
Different teammates, which is cool. So during my time at Porsche and Toyota, I did have a few changes of teammates, and the first World Championship was with Mark Webber and Timo Bernhard, which we formed such a strong bond together, and they'll be friends for life. Then Mark retired, and he changed with Earl Bamber. So anyway, I mean, I'm sure most of the viewers from New Zealand will know the story that myself and Earl grew up racing together. I spent summers on his farm. So it was such an incredible story that 20 odd years later, we stood on the top step of the Le Mans podium together as fellow Kiwis and friends as a kid. So that was an incredible moment. At the same time, Mark, who had been such a big part of my time at Porsche and endurance racing, actually was up on the podium with us, presenting us with the watches. So I think that was such a special moment to have not only Earl, but also Mark, who, like, we just had this such incredible bond, and to stand up there was incredible. Then to change manufacturers, you start that relationship again. So I've got completely different teammates. I've got different team personnel. Some of them I know very well. So even Sebastian Buemi, my teammate in the TSO 50, was one of my first flatmates in Europe when I came over here 15 years ago. So yeah, it's a small little world.
Amazing. Great memories for you. As you look ahead at the rest of the year, Brendon, what does it look like now? Because it's been such a difficult year for everyone in motorsport, hasn't it?
Yeah, at the moment, I almost feel like a part-time racer compared to previous years. I think in hindsight, I probably took on a little bit too much in some of the previous years. And that also after my time in F1, at the end of the season when I had a situation where I wasn't going to be racing Formula One, but I had to find the new opportunities, I really took every single thing that I could. I was a simulator driver for Ferrari. I was a reserve driver for Alfa Romeo. I was doing endurance racing in LMP1 with SMP. I took on a reserve driver role with Toyota, then ended up racing the end of the season. I took on Formula E test program with Porsche at the beginning of the year. Then I was racing with another team at the end of the year. I mean, I had so many things on the go. And I'm now in a situation where I'm solely racing for Toyota. So I stopped with the Formula E program. It didn't go very well. I always remained optimistic that we could take on the challenge against the big manufacturers, even if I was in one of the smallest teams on the grid. It didn't go as well as we would have liked, and that's come to an end. So right now I'm only in endurance racing, which I've quite enjoyed, having a bit more time to go and ride my bike, get really fit, be completely focused on something I really love. And ultimately, endurance racing is probably the form of motorsport that I've enjoyed the most throughout my career. So, I'm happy with that, but I'm probably looking to add a few more races going forward, just because I've got the time. But there's so much uncertainty at the moment that for next year, for example, if I was looking to do some races in America, it's just not clear at the moment with travel restrictions. Going in and out of countries is not straightforward. So there's still a few question marks in the air. But at the moment, I'm fully focused on the World Endurance Championship. So we have one more race left in the season next month in Bahrain. But the focus has also started to shift to the new race car and the new hypercar era. So the LMP1 cars that we've raced for the last 5 or 6 years are coming to an end, which is very sad. That they're incredible. They're some of the fastest cars on earth, incredibly fuel efficient. They've moved technology and hybrids to a new level, but the budget's got out a bit out of control, and I think ultimately that's what's ended the LMP1 era. But we're moving into the hypercar era. So Peugeot have announced they're coming back to take on the hypercar era. There are many rumors of other manufacturers. So I would still say the endurance racing, Le Mans and WEC, the future looks very bright. I would say that there still might be a bit of a lack of competition for next year, but definitely going forward, it's looking good, and Toyota are very committed, and I'm very excited to move forward into this new era.
Lots of people are excited about the new era. It's fantastic that you're actually getting to, get your teeth into that right now. I want to touch on just something you mentioned before, and that is kind of perhaps what might be unfinished business for you, or opportunities that you still may want to go off and pursue. So clearly, endurance racing, which you've developed this real affinity with, this real love for, is a prime focus. But what other things, Brendon, have you got a little yearning for that I'd really like to go and tick that race? Or, we're talking on the eve of the Bathurst 1000, more or less. Is that one of them, for example?
Yeah, it's a difficult question. The last few months, because so much is uncertain, I haven't really chased too many other things. And as I said, I've actually just enjoyed having to not hop on a plane 2 or 3 times a week like I did the last years. Bathurst, 100% is something I grew up watching. The Bathurst 1000 is definitely a race that I would love to do one day. It's not something I'm actively pursuing, but I think that I would be crazy to say anything other than as a Kiwi, it's definitely one of those races we've all grown up watching and would love to be a part of.
America, Brendon? America?
Yeah, so I've done a fair amount of racing in the US in sports cars. I love the racing there. Very different style within the teams, within the racing. I've always enjoyed it. I also grew up watching dirt track racing. I think I've mentioned in interviews before. So my brother did a bit of midget and sprint car racing. I did have a little taste of a sprint car maybe 7 or 8 years ago. Absolutely loved it. And I'd love to have a crack one day. I don't know when that's going to be, but I would love to jump in a World of Outlaw and do a bit of testing before. But I'd love to go to the Knoxville Nationals or in a midget at the Chili Bowl. I'm a big fan of dirt racing. I'm not claiming that I've got the skills to go and do it, but I'd love to give that a crack. I'd love to try some different stuff. Actually, I was just cycling yesterday with Valtteri Bottas, and I've been chatting to him. He's done a bit of rally, and I know he was meant to be doing one this week, I think, and it made me think a little bit about that. I'd love to just give a few different things a go, and maybe it would be more as for pleasure than really for the career. Well, who knows? But it's clear that I really love endurance racing, and that's definitely my career going forward over the next few years. But yeah, I would love to dabble with a few more side projects if possible. Also, I guess people that follow Rally New Zealand, there's just been an event put together, and I'm just trying to remember the name of it.
Jack's Ridge. Jack's Ridge. It's going to be fantastic, mate. It's going to be huge.
Which looks awesome, and that's a prime example of I would have loved to have been there, but obviously with current travel restrictions, it's probably not going to be possible. But there's a great example of an event that's actually putting people like myself. I think Shane's going to be there, and there's maybe a few other Tarmac boys, and mate, I'd be all over that. Hopefully next year.
Good stuff. We want to talk about just some of the challenges that you faced in your career as we look to perhaps giving some advice, or as we said at the top of this chat, maybe a little inspiration for young racers that are coming through. You've detailed some of those in interviews and podcasts and so on. When you were, a Red Bull Junior, it came with lots of wonderful door openings, Brendon, lots of wonderful opportunities, but a lot of pressure as well. What are the learnings from that, and what might be the kinds of pieces of advice that you would offer to some of those that are watching and that are coming through the junior formula now?
Yeah, these questions are really tough. I think the obvious one is taking looking at mistakes and hard times as a positive, and actually learning from them. It's not always easy to be a good sport and see a tough race or a tough challenge as in a positive way. But I think it's always worth reminding yourself that no one's having a good day every day of the week, and you've got to go through those hard times, and you've got to get those experiences to actually move forward. So I guess looking at things in a different way and looking at it as a positive when you've had a bad day. Okay, how can I do that better next time? How can I, just trying to see the positive things is something that I've worked on over my career. That it wasn't always like that, but I think I've got better at it. And I think the other one is just taking advice from people. I know as a Kiwi through my career, I've had plenty of people looking to help from New Zealand. We're very lucky in New Zealand to have supporters like the Gill Traps, PJ who helped me from a young age. I've Barry Tomlinson who ran the Toyota Racing Series from when I was doing it, and there's plenty of people out there to give advice to. I've had advice from drivers, from engineers. I think the idea is to have an open enough mind to take the advice, even if you don't always agree with it. I think if you're open enough to ask for help, people are generally happy to give it. And then I think it's about figuring out what's the right advice for you. And even if you don't agree with 90% of what someone's told you, there's always going to be 10% that you're going to be able to take and use in your own situation.
Belatedly, congratulations to you and to everyone who was involved in the Racing Local project before you went back in kind of the middle of the year. And
you as well, mate.
Yeah, I loved it. It was terrific. But I mean, with the arrival of COVID, the fact that many Kiwi racers came home, was a great initiative, Brendon, and everyone getting online and racing. What do you think has been the knock-on from all of that from sim racing? Where do you see it sort of fitting at the top level? Because you have done some things with Toyota where you were racing, online, but very much in a factory sense, haven't you?
Yeah, it was such a weird situation, when the whole world was basically in lockdown, and as racing drivers, we were very lucky to have this tool in the box, racing simulators where we could kind of showcase our skills. It's not exactly the same. I can't say I was particularly good in the simulators, and that's where the idea came, and it felt great to be part of the idea and putting together the Racing Local thing. One thing I did learn from that was how difficult events management is. We sometimes regretted taking on so much. It was a huge amount of work for 4 weeks, but it was so nice to see the whole motorsport community come together from all different disciplines and also helping for a good cause. And then, as you say, after that 4 weeks of Racing Local, I did a bit of sim racing. I was doing, speedway and dirt track, as I said, and that was what was also cool, that it was really mixing different skills and areas of motorsport. I then did the virtual Le Mans 24-hour with Toyota and our teammates. It was fun. We approached it like a real race. We did testing. We had a sim driver on board who was helping us. Of course, you don't have the same adrenaline rush in the race, but managing risk and reward, a lot of the mental side was really similar. That was an interesting process. Also for the engineers at Toyota, no one before had ever thought to do an online sim race, but I think everyone took something from it.
As we wrap up this conversation, a couple of questions to finish. The New Zealand Grand Prix has immense history in this country. You can, go back to some of the greats that came, to the likes of Kenny Smith, to you name it. Would it be nice to kind of add that one to the Brendon Hartley list as well, because it's still cherished very much, Brendon, isn't it?
I like the way you said when Kenny Smith came. He's still coming, I think.
Yeah, no, that's right.
Last time I spoke to him, he was already talking about the next New Zealand Grand Prix, which I love, by the way. I love telling some of the Europeans about Kenny Smith and the ones that haven't heard of him and what he's doing at his age and how motivated he is. He's unbelievable. I didn't mention him before, but so I'm actually feeling very guilty. I just mentioned before about the amount of Kiwis that are there looking for advice. Kenny was the first guy. I was there first time in a single seater at 12 years old. He was there giving me advice, watching, and he became a bit of a mentor to me. And that was actually a big whoopsie for. As I said, there's so many Kiwis like him, but he's the living legend, and he's the guy that, if you're a young driver, you need to go and have a chat to and listen very carefully. So, the New Zealand Grand Prix is something I didn't win, and as you say, it is very prestigious. I think I'm right in saying there's only 2 or 3 races in the world that can actually be called a Grand Prix. I think it's a Formula One Grand Prix, a Macau Grand Prix, the New Zealand Grand Prix. There might be another one. Yeah, so it's a pretty prestigious thing. I don't have any plans on coming back this year to race it, but yeah, maybe when I'm Kenny's age, I'll make a comeback. Final
one for you as we kind of conclude where we began on this with the Le Mans 24-hour. I mean, just one of the world's all-time great races. When you look back on what you've achieved in your career so far, to think you could chalk up 2, and with 2 very different, very big global automotive manufacturers is a massive achievement, Brendon. I hope you've had a chance to pause and to take that in, even though it's been a crazy year.
Yeah, no, I have. And as I said before, I haven't been as busy in the past. So the last couple of weeks, I've got the trophy sitting in the hallway there. And
show us it. Can you turn the camera around and show us the trophy? Or can we pass? Is Sarah might pass it over.
I've got a few helmets here.
Love it.
I'm on the iPad, but we sometimes do some helmet swaps. So that's Mark's helmet.
I
mentioned before. Timo below.
Fantastic.
Actually, ex-MotoGP rider is a good buddy of mine, Eugene Leverty. So I've done a couple of helmet swaps with people and stuff. If I walk in here, the light's not on, but you will see there's a couple of Le Mans trophies there.
Brilliant.
So I think that's the latest one. That was the 3rd place, and actually you might like this. This is I don't know if you can actually see that. No, you probably can't. Oh,
in the reflection.
Anyway, this is a signed photo from Chris Amon that he personally signed, which is super cool. And the one at the top here, which you might like, it's actually Bruce and Denny Holm signature on one little bit of paper, and I've got the photo of them together. Which that's just not working with the reflection. Is that there you go? You can kind of see it now. Some of my little prized possessions, but that's a cool one.
I love it.
Yeah, it'd be pretty hard to find Bruce and Denny's signature on a little bit of paper.
Well, you've added to some important pieces of motor racing history. I love the fact that you have such an appreciation for those in New Zealand motorsport that have come before you and done some amazing things. And well done for offering up some good pieces of advice for the next generation coming through. Congratulations on Le Mans again and winning again in 2020.
Yeah, cheers, Rusty.
It's fantastic to catch up with him. There he is, Brendon Hartley. We'll be back with another Kiwi catch-up, some of the drivers that are doing exceptional things on the international scene very soon. And for all the latest news as far as events that are happening right near you, go to the Motorsport New Zealand website, motorsport.org.nz.